You are live.
Okay, well, thank you. Today we have the Legislative Rules and Government Operations Committee meeting. It's November 29th. It's shortly after 9 a.m. We have approval of the minutes, and the minutes were from okay, the previous minutes from the previous meeting. Yeah, I did set them aside. November 2nd. Here we go. November 2nd, 2023. Is there a motion to get that to the floor for discussion? Moved by Supervisor Driscoll, second by Supervisor Wild. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented this morning.
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? All right. Minutes approved. Privilege of the floor, public comment. Okay, let's move on to the business of the day, which is Mike Colvin of IT has submitted a policy implementing state technology law 208. Requirements for notification when a person without a valid authorization has acquired private information. Now, I did download the law. And what Mike is proposing is very similar, word for word almost, for the New York State.
Chairman, if I could just interject for a moment, it was really more my office than Mike Colvin, but we ran it through IT.
Okay.
When we attended the NISAC conference, there was a list of mandatory policies for every county. This was one policy that I was unfamiliar with. So when we pulled it up, we did notice that it hadn't been updated since 2006. And there's been a lot of changes in the law in this area in particular since 2006. So my office just went through the policy to ensure that we were conforming our policy to state law, which is now what's in front of the committee here. We did provide it to Mike so he could review it, ensure that he was in agreement with it, which he obviously was because he forwarded it to the committee. But the changes in there are all legal changes that we added just to make sure that we're matching up to state law.
Okay.
And this is one of those policies based on what I learned at the NISAC conference, that if there were a comptroller investigation, it's one of those core policies they look at to make sure that we have and that we're in compliance with. So once this passes, all of our policies are in line as required by the state of New York.
All right, a motion to get it to the floor for discussion. Supervisor Driscoll. Seconded by Supervisor Thomas. Discussion. So it's just basically a notification requirement. If there has been identified breach in information that would be normally private. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things I didn't read on here, Social Security numbers, the basic good stuff that we need, but there supposedly was a breach of a possible driver's license abstract, the DMV. Driving record and stuff like that. It hasn't really completely came out yet, but there was a breach in that information. And somewhere out of this county, possibly.
Well,
Allegedly.
I have the state law here. That our law was patterned after. And, it does list the protections that people expect. And number 2 says driver's license number or non-driver identification card.
Number,
Yeah,
not a driver's abstract, totally different. So I'd like to see abstract. Driver's license abstract
okay.
applied.
From a legal perspective, that's not part of what this is talking about, because that's not the type of
Of course.
data that's being protected by state law. You're talking about a physical document, I think, and you're talking about an abstract. And I am honestly not familiar with New York State Department of Motor Vehicle rules and regs. But if there's a breach of our computer system, and as a result, for example, Department of Social Services collects social security numbers, and those numbers are accessed as part of that breach, this policy addresses what the requirements are for breaches of our computer security and access to these types of information. So a driver's abstract is different than the types of private
Still personal
information that are protected. I'm not arguing with you, but that would be an issue for the state, not for us, because we're required to follow the state law on this, which is geared to data breaches, not what I'm hearing is a document release, possibly. I think.
I
You're
have
talking about an
3 things
abstract.
that I've been trying to work on a local level. And every place I hit, it's always, oh, there's nothing we could do. You have to talk to the state. And since I can't, I call, I leave messages, oh, I'm busy, I'll get back to you, I never hear. It's the most ridiculous things that we can't, apply some of our own wording to protect people here in the county instead of waiting on the
Well, one
state
thing
who doesn't really do tiddly.
I show my driver's license when I go to the bank. I show my driver's license when I cross the border. I show the drivers, every time I go, people want identification, I show my private driver's license. I don't consider that private information like my social security number. That's, but anyhow, Supervisor.
But we're talking a driver's abstract, totally different than a number.
I can, in respect to, Mr. McGowan, I've been driving, I've had a driver's license for 49 years, and it was only this past year when my car was hit by another car that I have ever had to ask for an abstract. I came up to, motor vehicles and I don't think in any position that I've ever, applied for, certainly getting elected to the Board of Supervisors or the City Council, I ever had to show an abstract. And I've had positions where I was responsible for transporting individuals and or product. I guess I'm just confused as far as, and with due respect, why an abstract would be an important document to have.
Supervisor Garrity.
Yeah, you can't. Brad, you can't get an abstract unless you have the driver's license number, right? That's what they're saying here.
It was done.
No.
Allegedly, it was done here in the county. However they did it, I don't know. But it was posted. It was posted on the most famous person,
No, but I'm.
JM's.
This thing says you driver's license number, non-driver identification card. You can't give that up, right? That's what it says.
Again, these are the types of personal information. It's called private information that under New York State law, municipalities and the government regularly collect and keep on file.
Right. You can't.
And this is the requirements if an agency's computer system is breached to access these types of data. That's all it is. That's all this policy is. It's just like when, I'm not going to say the name of a corporation, but there's a large corporation that sells products and they have a breach, you see it in the news. And they go through steps to notify every consumer whose data was possibly available to some third party through that breach. Banks have the same requirements. Everybody has the same requirement. We've had the same requirement as a county, except our policy has not been updated since 2006. So really, I don't want to call this housekeeping, but we're just making sure our policy conforms to the current state law requirements. So there's no inconsistency between the two.
Yeah, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just did a quick lookup about driver's abstract and I hadn't understood what it was before. But on a New York State.gov website, it says here that it will display only information defined as public records. So it is a public record. It's not something that's a private record. It's, I'm sure insurance companies want to use it. It has to do with speeding tickets,
Authorized.
DWIs and stuff like that. So
Authorization.
there's no authorization. It's public record.
There's a,
All right.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Administrator Tavlon.
An abstract is a driving record for someone. It's public information. You can obtain an abstract by going to the DMV and filing a form to request an abstract on someone. You have to have certain information on that person. I do believe, I think you need to have like the driver's license number for the person that you're obtaining the information on. What this policy is about computer information and a potential breach of that information by an unknown party who gets access to our network. So in this case that we're talking about, and I'm familiar with because I'm the FOIL guy, the records access officer, and I know a lot of FOIL requests that come in. It did not result from the breach of our network system releasing any information on the person. All the information that was released was public information.
All right, that's a good point. This deals with a breach. Suppose you're just going to.
No, I'm good.
The question that I had, and I don't know if it's necessary, but I do see that it's been identified here that if there is a breach and the department had, their obligation is to tell the people whose information may have been breached of this. But, you know, it doesn't say the department head has to report this to county administrator, for example. You would think there'd be some obligation and, you know, as a normal course of duty, I would think a department head would tell at least the administrator of this breach happening, but I don't see that obligation in this law.
Yeah, I don't believe we updated any of those provisions. All we did was ensure that the definitions that you see in the state statute are now in the policy, so that could certainly be added to this policy.
Yeah, well, I just a matter of course of duty for a department head. Maybe it doesn't need to be here. That they would identify the administration of a breach. Because the only obligation here that I'm reading is the department head has to notify the breach of security of the system to any resident in New York State whose private information was or is reasonably believed to have been accessed or acquired by a person without a valid authorization.
I don't believe that's all. They do have to consult with the IT department. And then they are required, there's a reporting requirement to law enforcement as well.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm
But
just
those would be
saying,
the
in
two
theory,
upfronts.
nobody's obligated to tell the administration. Supervisor Driscoll.
If it's gonna get us through this conversation, I'd like to make, I guess, a motion to add, and is encouraged to, contact, Warren County Administration. That breach.
And if I could make just a brief modification under section 3 notification, paragraph G, which is on page 5. It currently reads, in the event that any New York residents are to be notified, the department head shall notify, and at that place, we could put in the Warren County Administrator. And then the rest of that paragraph would continue. The Warren County Attorney, the Consumer Protection Board, the Warren County Information Technology Department.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so the proposed amending of what's being offered you today, just so it's clear, is under section Roman numeral 3 notification, paragraph G, we will add Warren County Administrator to the list of folks that need to be identified should there be a breach. Is that okay with the committee? Anything else? Okay, I'll take a vote, approve what's before us, and that's the new policy implementing state technology law 208, requirements for notification when a person without a valid authorization has acquired private information as amended. I'll take a vote on that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes unanimously. Discussion items. Shared services. Anything on that? Anybody want to speak to that? All right. Ain't nothing, nobody wants to speak to that. Oh, privilege of the floor, public comment, any follow-up from today's business? Okay, so before we adjourn, the FOIA policy was added to the agenda at one time. I had it taken off thinking that we're going to have a meeting in December. That may not be the case. We may not have a meeting in December for the Legislative Government Operations Committee. I mean, I suppose we could discuss it and not act on it because I had it removed from the agenda, but and I also asked for a red line version of it so that you could see what's been amended. County Council and I discussed before this meeting that what is presented to us in terms of FOIL is actually mostly all new. So it isn't really an amending of an older version. It's really a newer version in much better accord with current standards than the older one. And so, you know, I suppose we'll have a special meeting on this in December or just wait until January, but I don't know who's going to be chair. I don't even know if there's going to be a separate committee because we have the chairmanship and then whoever becomes the chair kind of does all that stuff for us. I don't know. Any thoughts on the FOIA policy at this time? Yeah.
Unless it leaves us, I guess, vulnerable. I think we have 6 new members joining the board. Historically, I don't like to kind of do business that could wait at the 11th hour. I'd like to give an opportunity to our new members to get right in the ball game and you know, address a very important issue. So again, unless it leaves us vulnerable for any particular kind of scenario that could happen, I would encourage us to wait till January and give the new members an opportunity to kind of engage in our work.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't believe it leaves us vulnerable in any way. I think we're following, most of the guidance comes from the state of New York anyway. It's just in our implementation of how we implement the requirements by the state, public officers law. So I don't think it puts us vulnerable in any.
I agree.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's okay with the committee to defer this to a later time? All right, then, there's no other business. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion put forward Supervisor Wild, seconded by Supervisor Good, so we're now adjourned.